had a little drum machine. No, please don't hate me, but that's what we did back then. And so me and my
What
little...
year was that, though?
Oh, golly.
Hang on. Can I just interrupt you just for a second?
Yeah.
Because I want to introduce you to the people.
Oh, okay.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Unsung. And I appreciate you all watching this, or anyone for that matter. I want to introduce you to somebody that I've known for quite a while. And to me, this person represented absolutely some of the best that Calgary had to offer. And I remember meeting her and her husband at one point and just going, oh my God, I finally met them, but I'll never work with them. And then one day she called me up and she wanted me to play drums for her. And I was like, are you nuts? You haven't heard me? And the rest, as they say, is history. So please welcome Viviane Cardinal Martin.
Yes.
Viviane Cardinal Goldstein.
No, Viviane Martin will do.
Okay,
Yes.
Viviane Martin.
Or Viviane Martin, whatever you want to say.
Viviane.
Viviane.
Oh, I like that even more. I think Zoe Theodora would like it if I pronounced it that way too.
Yeah,
Viviane.
I think so. Viviane.
So,
Anyway, yeah.
keep going with your story.
Well,
I remember I had some jazz festival gigs, and I had hired a drummer for them, and we had a rehearsal, and it was very apparent that he was actually a blues drummer, and he was a great drummer, but he wasn't going to cut the jazz gig because there were charts and reading and all that. And he said, you know what, he called me up after the rehearsal and said, yeah, I'm not the guy for you. See, this is a story that, in Calgary, that it does exist, that people are gracious enough to say, I can't do this, but I got the guy who can do it for you. Oh. And that's when I called you up for the gig.
Really?
Yes.
So he actually recommended me?
yes.
Wow, that was nice of him.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Huh.
Thank God, because you walked in and it was like, bida bam, bida boom, done, kind of thing.
Was it all right? I don't even remember.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I was, at that point, I was still, infatuated with the two of you.
Yeah, no, we
We played here in Calgary and we went to Edmonton and played. Do you remember that?
That was the Zappacosta thing, wasn't it?
yeah, we opened for Alfie
Yeah.
in Edmonton, and here
We opened for Nancy King.
Really?
Yes.
See, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember Zappacosta.
Yeah, and it was magical. It really was.
It was magical, and not yet, but I want to get to, in our conversation, I want to get to that record that I had to learn some of the songs off of to play. Because in my estimation, I'm going to give it away, but in my estimation, that stands as one of the best jazz albums, vocal jazz albums, I've ever heard. From the arrangement to the songwriting, I suppose songwriting and arrangement, to the fact that, Dan came up with the, what's the name of that song? The 1, 5, and 6, and 4, and
the
20.
kicks,
Kicks, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what an amazing song that is, and you sang the shit out of that record. And, once again, you listen to that and you go, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to play this stuff? I don't even understand it. And, of course, I got busy trying to understand it. And I think that probably, part of that was the catalyst for me learning the things that I've gone on to, be affectionate with in
Right.
terms of my instrument.
Right.
Odd time signatures and things like that. I think it came because, here you present me with this song and go, you got, no pressure, but don't fuck up, you got like 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God, And so I just had to get busy.
Yeah.
And so, probably a little credit belongs to you for pushing me in that direction.
Well, I didn't know I was pushing you at the time, but thank you. I like to think that we all need to give each other a little push now and then, sometimes.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And well, let's start at the top, because I do this with everybody, and I think it's it's as good as anything, because I don't really know that much about your history. You and I have known each other for quite a while, and we've been in bands together, and the last couple of years, we haven't really seen that much. Some church gigs here and there, but I've been off doing my own thing, whatever that is, and you've been doing yours.
Yes.
And so let's start at the top. I think you're Quebec? Quoi?
I grew up in Montreal on the South Shore in Chateauguay. Yeah.
Right.
And actually, I did not come from a musical family. Nobody in my family played an instrument at all. However, there was always music going on in the house. My mom loved music. So, and she loved all kinds of music. She was Ukrainian, so we listened to a lot of Ukrainian folk stuff and Russian Red Army, and then she loved Latin music. So she had albums of Latin music, so we listened to that too. And then I had an older sister and brother, and my sister was into the Rolling Stones and all that kind of stuff. But my brother, he was really instrumental. He was so diverse in what he listened to. He would listen to everything like from Frank Zappa to Joni Mitchell to, you know, all of that. It was just everywhere. Roger Miller, he had Roger Miller albums, you know? Really? Yeah, so it was really an interesting mix. So even though I wasn't formally getting a musical education, there were many seeds planted when I was little. And my parents, in the basement, our basement wasn't finished, and they were storing an old 78 record player for the neighbors. So I would sneak downstairs, 5, 6 years old, and it was creepy down there. I'd go downstairs and I would put on these records and sing along to them. So I was singing along to Doris Day. I'd get a lesson from Doris Day and Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra, and so that was pretty cool.
That was the music that you were gravitating towards?
Not at that time. No, I wouldn't say that. My brother bought me a guitar when I was about 12, 13. So I started playing a lot of folk kind of stuff and, you know, country and, you know.
But as a young kid,
you would throw on the Doris Day record.
Yes, well, that's what was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I spent hours down there, and my sister said to my mom, I think there's something wrong with her. You need to take her to see someone, you know. And
she's obsessed.
Yeah, exactly. I was obsessed. I loved to sing. And then, you know, the hairbrush, singing along to the Beatles in the mirror, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always loved music, always been singing. And it's been my my sanctuary, I think.
When did you...
Because I've asked a bunch of people this, and everyone seems to have a similar answer. When did you... was there always this propensity within you, like as far back as you can remember? Was music something you gravitated towards, or was there some sort of epiphany light, or you know, some sort of moment of revelation, or do you just think that you always possessed that desire to?
Just always been singing, always, ever since I was little.
So it was as natural to you as
Breathing.
right?
Yeah, walking, like that's what I loved to do, was to sing. Yep. I still do, you know. It carries me through things. It's like probably my best friend, music.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think it calms me in times when I'm going crazy inside, and helps me go crazy when I'm too calm inside, you know. Yeah.
Right.
And I suppose performing gives you the opportunity to do that too, you know, to step outside yourself and be a little crazy.
Absolutely. And you know, it's probably...
I don't know if I'm at my most comfortablest. Is that a word? I think I just made a word up. Most comfortable?
Most comfortable.
Yeah.
You can use either.
performing.
Performing to me is always a challenge, always. Getting up at jams, I get freaked out and everyone's like, what? I'm like, I do. And it's just maybe because it's the unknown, maybe it's because I've had some really horrible experiences, don't know. But there have been, you know, I can count up probably on one hand, there's been performances where I've walked off and went, wow, Nirvana. It was like musical Nirvana tonight. I loved it, you know. It was like when you get in the car and drive somewhere and you get to your destination, you're like, oh, I don't know, I can't remember getting here really. I don't remember the drive. So I got to the end of a musical night and went, I don't remember getting here, but I know it feels really good. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
I've experienced those, I just haven't experienced that many of them.
No.
I remember doing the Fusion Trio one night at, what's that club on 9th Avenue, the jazz club upstairs?
Lolitas.
Yeah, Lolitas.
Yeah.
We did the Lolitas probably about 4 years ago. And Steph, Jason Graham, and myself. And I'd come back to the band, I'd kind of, walked away for a bit, and everything felt cool and good, and it was cool and good, and I came back. And it was Lolitas, and I had a few of my students came that evening, and I don't know what it was about that night, but it was like Dreamweaver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was, although, none of those melodic sensibilities were, it was a lot stranger melodically that evening, and rhythmically pretty intense. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was, but the crowd, everybody, the other two guys, they didn't quite experience, I don't think, that night the way I did. But to me, it was like we all got into this ship together and just went on an astral ride, through the cosmos. And we just left Earth. And we just started flying by planets and all these unknown things. Mm-hmm. And I was playing it just that night in particular. It was like I could do no wrong, and because I wasn't even trying, and of course that's what they say, and I experienced that night. And I think part of it, I think that you can experience that more with people you really trust and people that aren't going to limit you.
Right. Yes.
So when you do a pop gig and people go, well, no, you can't do that. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah. Right? And so now I'm just going to play like, there's no way to experience that level of freedom, that level of, I don't even know, the spiritual universe just opening up and
definitely.
Yeah, and wrapping it and just slingshotting you out into the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's what that. And there were times when I looked out at the audience, and it literally seemed like we were all, like everybody was like staring at me, and that was uncommon anyway, because I played so many bars that I just look over and there's a guy trying to pick up a chick, and another guy puking on the floor, and nobody's watching anything I'm doing. And that night, everybody was just intent. Everybody was just like that, and it was kind of like I was driving a spaceship, And then of course I'd hand it over, and Steph would be driving it, Jay'd be driving it, and that's what that night represented. That's a long answer to a very short question.
But you get it.
You get it.
Totally.
And it doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, it's like, this is why I'm doing this, to have those experiences. And the other ones are just the ones that lead up to that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're all good.
They're all good.
Yes.
They're all learning,
Absolutely.
experiences, and to me, it wasn't even so much about me. I was a little astounded at the fact of what I was feeling, what I was sensing, what I was going through in that moment, but I was more aware of the people in the crowd and the fact that we were literally taking them on a journey. And, I could say that maybe ignorantly, and anybody in the crowd would say, no, it was all right. But I asked, certain ones of them that, after, and they were like, I don't know what to say, I think I got to go home and take a shower now or something,
And maybe they were taking you guys on a journey, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, it can go both ways, I think.
Well, I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, when the audience is that wrapped,
Yeah.
then you're sharing something.
You just go together.
Right. Yeah. Then it's no longer just about me or what I'm doing or, hey, check this out.
That's right.
It's about the fact that they're giving back to me and they're going, yeah, that was good. What else do you got? They're challenging you, and that was nice. And oh, damn, he just did that. And they just feed you so much.
I think it has a lot to do with showing up and just being your authentic self and playing your raw, organic self. It's when all that, the premise disappears. I don't have to look a certain way. I don't have to sound like somebody else. I can just be me, and that's okay. It's enough.
Sure. Yeah. It was our music too, right? Steph had wrote it,
Yeah.
Jay had wrote it, I had helped arrange it. And so it was, we all felt like we had ownership of that part of it. Mm-hmm. And once again, I think it has to do with the people you play with and the fact that there was no agenda. The only agenda was to play great.
Right.
you know, to leave some DNA.
Yeah.
And I did. You know, I got finished the evening and I was like, dude, you know, like, you know, I'm all excited, you know, running around, you know, freaking out. And they're like, yeah, it was pretty good. And I'm like, you guys just, you didn't see it, did you? You know, it was right there in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And, but that's okay. I was just glad that two guys allowed me to experience that.
There you go.
With no judgment.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I guess, probably the moments that I've experienced those things, when it's just so open and so free.
Yeah.
Even if the music itself might have parameters,
Yeah.
you just know that everyone is going to accept you, that you can't play a bad note. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
I think for myself, it has a lot to do with how I show up, more than anything. And setting the intention that it's going to be a great night. And I probably don't do that enough. You know, being the, when you're a leader and getting the gig and organizing the musicians and organizing the music, and you have all those things to contend with. And then when you get on stage, it's like, oh, I get to put my singer's hat on now. But almost at that point, it's too late. You got to put the singer's hat on before you get up on stage and sing.
Right.
Right?
You can't remind yourself of that 3 songs in.
No.
Or you might kind of be...
It's like, oh yeah, here I am.
Yeah, because it'd be like running a race and starting, you know, 20 feet behind everybody else. It's like, it doesn't work, right? Well, you still could win, I guess, yeah.
Or yeah, you're like at the Indianapolis 500 and you forget that, you know, you just think you're driving to the corner store until 3 minutes later you're like, oh shit, and they clapped you 5 times and you're like, well, now I just ain't gonna win.
And you know, like I said, it's all good. You know, it's all perfect, really. It really is. At the end of gigs, I always look back and go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and what can we improve on?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose almost every gig is like that. I mean, if you're a conscientious player or musician or singer or whatever, you're always, you know, you're always critiquing the night. And I learned a long time ago that there are no bad gigs.
Yeah.
Because I used to, you know, I'd get, like, I remember being in my 20s and every gig was depressing. You know, I'd come away just, you know, and just hating what I did and not having the facility and not being able to play all those crazy things that went through my mind but couldn't come out my hands. And finally, you know, somebody said that to me. You know, they said, like, when you're playing with other people, there are no bad gigs. You know, it's a good gig. Just take what you experienced and what you might learn from that, and work on that, and come back and do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, looking back over the years, there were a lot of times that, you know, yeah, I like you. It's like you get off stage and you go, wow, that really, what am I doing? What am I doing? Should I really even be up there, kind of thing.
Really? Do you have that too?
Oh yeah. And you know, Sheila Jordan, who's one of my fondest mentors, she always says, just keep singing. Just keep singing. You know, just keep on swimming, kind of thing, but just keep singing. Last year I had a really humbling year. I don't know, because I never really get sick. I never get sick, hardly at all. Like, it just doesn't happen. But I ended up getting walking pneumonia, and the coughing and the hacking really affected my vocal cords. And I kind of got over it, and you know, I thought, well, I'll take some gigs, but I never knew what my voice was going to do. It could like crack, it yodel, whatever. It kind of just had a mind of its own.
And was this after the
Sickness kind of subsided, or?
Yeah. And then I got it again.
And after the second time, I was like, man, I'm so done, because it's taking all I have to get healthy again and get back, and like just the coughing alone, it just irritates the vocal cords so badly. They rub, cough, hack, and my lungs, I wasn't breathing, you know, to sing, and so I was like, man, maybe I'm done, you know. But then there's that little inside. I don't, whatever you want to call it. That's like, you are not done. You can't stop.
Right.
And I didn't. And last Friday night, I had the opportunity to sing. And I got up and did a couple of tunes, and I got off, and I went, yep, that's why I do it. It was one of those nights where it was just 2 songs, and I felt like I had soared the universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was at Lolita's, a very magical room. And Bill Kuhn was in town. Do you know Bill?
I don't know.
Wonderful guitar player, just amazing guitar player. And
Canadian guy? Or?
Yeah, he's from Vancouver.
and I had arranged to have him come to Calgary and do a concert and a workshop. And he asked me to do a couple of songs with him, and I did, and it was amazing.
Nice.
Really amazing. So those are the nights where you go, yeah, I can do this. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
Was there quite a few people there?
It was packed.
It was.
And it was solo guitar.
Yeah.
So
right.
it was.
Were there two? I thought there were two guys. Were there two guitar players? Just him?
Well, there was him.
And then the second set, he invited a couple of people up. John McCrory, who's a very fine guitar player here, and Gus Moberg, who's another fine guitar player here in Calgary. And yeah, so they both did a couple of tunes with him, and then I got up and sang, and it was one of the best nights ever of singing. That, you know, because I was in that place where it got to the end of the tune, and it was such a magical musical conversation. Yeah.
How is Lolita's doing? Is it faring quite well?
I think
There are a lot of nights where they have a lot of people in, and then there's other nights where you just never know.
Right.
You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me like music has suffered a little bit over the last few years.
yeah. I don't know. I think you have to be smart about it.
You know, you go into Lolita's and you really got to market it. If you know, yeah.
Well, Bill was a success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Packed house.
Packed house.
Huh.
Which was nice. So I hope he comes back.
How do you market it? What's your... Because you probably had to do a lot of the legwork, right, if you brought them in?
Yeah.
You know, I use Facebook a lot. I send out emails or texts. And
That old crutch. Yeah.
I am on Facebook a lot. I'm a junkie. I'm a Facebook junkie.
Are you?
Oh yeah. I don't do Instagram or tweet or too much of
I
that
don't do
stuff.
any of that stuff either.
But Facebook, definitely. Yeah.
It's helped me keep in touch with people I would have never kept in touch with, which I love.
That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty. I've met some great singers in the States that I keep in touch with.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy Siegel in LA, and yeah, I met Rose Mallette in Palm Springs, and so I keep in touch with them through Facebook.
Really?
It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know these people,
You know,
the
and
names
Jay
of them.
Clayton, I can keep in touch with her.
Her and Sheila's on Facebook. She's in her 90s, for heaven's sakes.
Really?
It's so cool. Yeah. So keep in touch with people.
It seems like a good marketing tool to me, Facebook.
Yeah, it can be.
I think people sometimes take it too personally. Like, or they're showing, what they had for lunch, or, before consumption, that is. And, there's just, for me, Facebook is a way to proliferate something. It's a good business tool. It doesn't necessarily connect us to each other in the most meaningful of ways.
I think I've grown deeper relationships through Facebook with a lot of singers in town, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Through the connection of the fact that you can get a hold of them that way and then get together with them.
And I see their posts and I'll comment or share if they're gigging or, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's interesting.
Different perspectives, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
People say, well, why didn't you like that? Or why didn't you, I saw one guy on somebody's post last week, and I just read it because it was interesting. I try and stay away from drama as much as I can, I think. At least I like to say that. And this guy was like, you never like any of my posts. And And the guy's like, well, you know, like I just kind of, I don't know what to say about that. You know, like I like all your posts, why don't you like my posts? And the guy's like, well, I just use this as a business sort of tool. You know, I just run it that way. I'm not really on here. When it says friends, we're not really friends, you know, because my friends are something different. They're not electronic, you know, they're not ether. They are real, they are tangible. You know, that's kind of one of the reasons that the show exists for me, is because I want to get together with people. I don't mean that I'm needy and I need you to be here.
No.
I just mean that you know, that we've lost that connection of conversation and of getting together.
Right.
Like we used to, you know, like in the kitchen at Mom's house, you know, and everybody maybe played an instrument or, you know, those sorts of things, right?
Right.
And the community of really being together, being around each other, being accountable to one another. Because as much as I think you're certainly, you know, right in the respects that you're saying, but there's not a lot of accountability when it comes to the fact that we're not close to each other.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, like I don't know,
You could be doing anything, but you can certainly show me a persona of you.
you know what I mean? You can show me what you might look like.
Yeah.
But now that I'm here in front of you, even talking to you right now, I feel this accountability. I feel a nervousness that I wouldn't feel if I was just typing.
Right.
Well, there is something to that. You can, you know, put anything out there, and yeah, you're right about that. It's like you don't have to be, yeah. However, on the other side of it, I've shown up at Lolitas or gigs, and I've met people that I'm friends with on Facebook that I've never met in person before, and all of a sudden it's like, hi, we're friends on Facebook, yeah, hug, you know, so.
Right, and that feels great. doesn't
You
it?
must think I'm crazy, I guess, I don't know.
No, because I felt that way too. There's this guy that's kind of been digging my drum lesson stuff. And I met a guy on Saturday at a jam I was co-hosting. And I'd never met this guy in my life. He was a French gentleman. And I forget the names of the bands that he was in, but from his own estimation and the stories he was telling me, they were pretty successful bands back in the late 80s, early 90s. I wish I could remember the names of the bands. But he said that he was using this one drummer. And this one drummer has been looking a lot at the stuff that I've been posting online. And so now it makes me want to get together with this guy, with this drummer, and go, dude, you know, like this guy used you back in the 80s and 90s, and he said, you know, you kick ass, and now I'd love to meet and just sit around and talk like I'm doing now. So I certainly see where it can maybe birth that.
New friendships.
Yeah, new friendships and getting together with people and doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, I get that excitement, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my thing on Facebook.
Well, I'm on there quite a bit myself now because I'm trying to, you know, I'm getting this show out and I got, you know, the lessons and things like that. And I certainly find that it's a...
And it's how I find out what's going on in town. If it wasn't for Facebook, I don't know how I would find out what the heck was going on in town musically.
Right.
You know, and I've seen people on there, it's like, oh, I want to go to a jam this afternoon. Anybody know what jam's going on? Boom, 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 boom. Like, there's so much music going on. It's insane.
And there's actually a whole Facebook page just devoted to the jam scene and what
there you
jams are
go.
happening.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of jams in this town, aren't there?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like...
Although they freak me out.
Did I say that
You
before?
did.
Yeah,
You did.
jam.
I'm curious about that, so I'll ask you because now you've said it twice. Now I have to ask, what freaks you out about it? Is it different for a singer than a musician, do you think?
For myself,
It's way easier to get up and do a whole night of music than it is to get up and do a song. It's
Because you're kind of cold, right?
yeah, I think maybe that's it.
I think so too. You know, I kind
And I
of...
don't know the people up there, and you know, and maybe it has to do with being a little insecure in my own abilities, you know.
It might have to do with being a vocalist a little bit too, because I know as a drummer I can sort of, you know, manipulate certain parameters, you know. I can have an influence on some of the variables. Like if I get up with a guy that can't play the bass, I can kind of push and pull. You know, I can drag that guy with me. Whereas if you're a singer, everybody needs to be there. If somebody plays the wrong note, well then all of a sudden, like,
How about
that
if
affects
people
you.
are playing in different keys? That's happened to me, where it's like,
Don't they call that jazz though?
oh, no. Shame on you. No, and you know, there is, you know, I'm confident in my ability to get up and, you know, call a tune and talk it down and, you know, count it in and all of that. It's just, then I'm at the mercy of whoever's playing, I guess.
In that moment.
Yeah. And I want to have a great musical moment every time I get up and sing, so maybe that's what does it too.
Right.
You want to recreate that feeling you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, maybe that's a lot to expect from a jam.
Well, maybe.
Maybe because it's a pretty quick picture.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that what you're talking about, maybe, you know, in terms of, you know, culinary disciplines, it takes a while to brew that. It takes a while to, you got to stir that a little bit more. It's not instant coffee.
That's right.
In that sense,
Yeah.
right? It's a fine brew.
Yeah.
Right? But it certainly feels good.
When those moments happen.
Yes, it does.
So jams.
Yeah.
You're just not a big...
No. And I get them. I get why they're out there, and that I think it's great to go out and do them and meet people, and you know, the social aspect of them's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the whole construct of a jam has changed over the years as well. Like, I think that's kind of where we're finding an excuse to have community, whereas before it existed as part of an overall vibrant music scene. You know what I mean? Like there were, you know, just tons of gigs, and you know, everybody was playing. And I think about Count Basie and what's the guy's name? The producer, black producer, you know,
Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones, right?
Yeah,
And he used to go and watch Basie at jams and you know, and get up and fail horribly, and of course, you know, be cut and not, you know, make it, and have people, you know, giving them the stink eye and what are you doing, and he said, I learned so much, you know, in the fact that there were brutal places that you could really get your feelings hurt.
Right.
But that's what I needed if I was going to be any good at all.
Right.
I couldn't have people blowing smoke up my ass. And I think that's maybe a little bit about what's changed at a jam now, is that I've been to a few of them, numerous, you know, where you can play really badly and everybody just wants to say, good job.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's fine if we want to take it in the construct now of a more social thing, where we just get together and we try to praise each other. But I also think that for the sake of music itself, and for the sake of people that do what they do so well, like yourself, that if you water down something too much, then it doesn't really matter what you do.
Well, maybe jams
It's taken over from the old kitchen parties, you know? Everybody can get together and play,
Right.
but it's not somebody's house kind of thing at a kitchen table, or they just get together and play.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I think socially.
Absolutely. I think the only difference between the kitchen party and a jam is that somebody's still getting paid for that.
Oh, yes.
Whereas the kitchen party, nobody's handed out any dough. So for me, I don't know, maybe I guess I'm getting old. But for me, that if somebody's getting paid for it, I would want that person to be worth that. You know? Because somebody is worth that. And not just because they set up equipment and, you know, they allow this faux community to happen or to be, but because that person themselves can teach me something about music.
You know, one of the best jams in town?
Is at the King Eddie the first Tuesday of every month. Jason Below hosts a jam there, and he calls it Almost Jazz. So they do like the old kind of swing tunes and stuff, like, and it's pretty magical.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, it's a great, yeah. I've been a couple of times. I don't get so freaked out on those ones, because I know those guys, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Jason Blow.
See, I don't know him probably as well as I should, but he's a name that you go, okay, there's a guy, right? And is it good? Is it successful? Are there a lot of
Very
people
good.
coming out?
Very good.
Yeah. Well, I gotta check it out then.
Yeah.
There's no cover, right?
No cover.
Good,
No
good.
cover.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great jam. There you go, Jason. Plug.
Wow. Wow.
You got people working for you, Jason. That's it. You know, maybe wanting to cut. I'm not sure. So what are you doing these days? I mean, I look back and I think about the days that you and I worked more together. I think of the first days. I remember, you know, I had a girlfriend that introduced me to you. I don't know, you may not even remember this, but you and Dan were playing at a restaurant between McLeod Trails and 17th Avenue. And there was like a 2-story restaurant or something. Looked like an old Tudor house or something.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the name.
Right.
And yeah.
It's going back a ways.
Yeah, it is.
You know, back to like 2099, 2000.
Escobados or Esmeraldas, or it was
Right.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I hadn't met you yet.
And she kind of knew you. I think maybe she took one of your courses or something.
Oh, it could be.
Yeah, and she's like, you know, do you want to go see, Viviane Cardinal? I think you were going
That
by.
was,
a little bit
yes.
more.
Yeah.
And Dan Martin, and I was like, well, yeah, as long as I don't have to talk to them, you know, because what am I going to say? You know, these people, they're iconic, goddammit. What do I? And so we went, and then of course she introduced me to you, and I wasn't, you know, I had to get over my fear of self-loathing in that moment, and I met you guys for the first time, and I was like, oh, they're just people.
And we're real people, yeah.
If you cut them, they will be.
See,
And we don't think of ourselves that way at all. It's like,
That's the impact that you had, that I think you should be aware of. That's the impact you had, certainly on me, and I'm not alone in this. I don't think I'm so abnormal in that respect that I'm the only one that ever thought that about the two of you. I thought that you guys represented quality. And not only quality, but excellence. And to a certain degree, I suppose, mastery. I knew that you were serious. And that in order to stand in that presence and do what you were doing along with you, you also, that whoever that person was, had to be striving for that same thing. And that's just the truth of that one.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's good to know, I think.
blush here.
But it is.
Stop.
It is.
Both you and Dan, I mean, I remember, Dan carried the same weight,
Well, he is pretty masterful on
Yeah,
that guitar. He is.
he is.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to talk too much about him because you're coming on the show.
oh, and no, and don't even, because I know you want to say something, but
I do. I won't say a thing.
no, because
No.
Whether it be chains or something that he,
You might have to go to him.
You know what?
Take it on the road, Gavin.
I did it once already. Brian Simblek. But I like doing it here. I like this space. And I think, I'll say this because I thought about it today. And I know, Dan, you're not here to defend yourself, but I thought about this. I thought that, I could not do this. You know what I mean? I could not have this. I could not think that there are people in this town that are worth it. But I think that I have a responsibility that because I was part of something, and I guess I'm still, you know what I mean? I said to myself a couple years ago, I'll die trying. I'll die trying. I have to. And that doesn't mean I won't die disappointed, but I have to try. And I think that we have a responsibility, those of us that were as literally iconic, and maybe not nationally, maybe not in terms of the entire planet, but we certainly had an influence here. And when I say we, I don't mean me at all. I don't mean that I have that
We all
influence.
influence each other
well, we
when
do.
it comes
we
right
do.
down to it.
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
I defer because I think that there are people that truly had a bigger impact. And I think that you are that, except maybe I can say were in the sense that music has changed now. and that's a shame. But Dan, absolutely. And so
I don't know if music has changed.
I mean,
The industry
The
may
industry,
change,
right.
but I think music is music.
well, no, you're right. I mean, music to me, in a sense, is kind of like God.
Yeah.
God doesn't change. God doesn't move.
No.
We do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we get from underneath the umbrella of what is good and what is proper and what is right,
Right.
and what is quantifiable, what is good and what is bad. I think we move from underneath that umbrella.
Right.
I don't think that umbrella moves, and to me that umbrella is music. Music, you're right, music hasn't changed. I said that erroneously.
Yeah.
But we change, and because there is so much commercialism, and few benefiting from it, from that true corporate, bending over in a sense, There's only a few people that really benefit from that. But the people that have given their lives to art and to mastery and to what is good, because there is good and there is bad. I truly believe that. Not just there is good and there's better. No, there's some bad shit out there, and we seem to be eating that with a spoon. Not us. I don't mean
Right.
us, but I mean
Right.
our culture seems to be feeding themselves with things that don't necessarily last.
Right.
Yeah, I don't listen to that. I mean, I love jazz. I love all kinds of music, truly. But, for me, I love jazz. There are some great tunes being written today.
Sure.
There are some.
Yeah.
But, I'm a jazz girl. I don't get caught up in the other stuff very much. Jazz is such an honest music, I think, and we
That's what
get
I'm
to be
saying.
ourselves.
Sure.
So, and the more we are ourselves, I think the better it gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the more honest we are.
Yeah. I remember Hugh Fraser once saying that,
We're all kind of like prisms, and the music flows through us. And those kaleidoscope things, it comes through in different ways. So, yeah, as long as somebody's being authentic, I think,
Right.
And I think truly that the really great that have gone down before us, kind of like Bob Dylan, it doesn't get more authentic. He was who he was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we'd make it through the first round of American Idol today.
no, he probably wouldn't.
Yeah,
But
and
that-
what a shame. Wouldn't you say that? If Bob Dylan was 20 right now and had,
But I don't think he wouldn't have to do that. I don't think he'd have to do that, right?
What do you mean?
He wouldn't even, he wouldn't be on American Idol. He wouldn't have to.
Well, he probably wouldn't. You're
Yeah.
right.
you're right. I mean, he probably wouldn't care that thing
Exactly.
existed. He'd
Yeah.
probably go, that thing's for
Yeah.
schmucks.
Yeah.
But I guess I guess my fear is, and I use that term just for lack of a better one.
Schmucks.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, you can. Schmuck is a great one, and neither one of us
I've
is
seen
Jewish.
some great singers. I don't really watch.
We don't have TV, so I don't really watch that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, we don't have cable. I watch YouTube. I watch a lot of Joe Rogan. I watch,
Right.
Neil deGrasse Tyson or
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Those are the things I watch. We don't have cable. I don't want cable. I mean, and it's funny because I struggled with that years ago. I was like, I'm going to get rid of cable. And then I'm like, cable. Oh, I need me some cable.
Hook me up,
Yeah,
hook me up.
right. And so, back, right? And I don't even, I don't miss, there's nothing I miss about what they call it, syndicated television.
Right.
There's just nothing that I don't miss a thing. I go to YouTube and I find that there's so much information on there. And it finally I'm getting informed, in the ways that I'm a dummy. Somebody's teaching me something. Like I watched Jordan Peterson and he says, get up off your ass. And I'm like, well, I will as soon as I'm done watching you in this bag of potato chips.
Yeah.
I'm learning,
There's some great information. Absolutely.
There really is.
and there's some genuine articles out there.
Yeah.
And honesty, like you say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's some honest people doing some honest work.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and I think that that's what I long for. I mean, maybe, the fact that I'm not 20 anymore either, but I say that because I'm going to say that, you know, I'm not 20, so maybe if I was 20, I'd feel more of a pull towards our culture
Right.
at the moment. But I don't know if I was 20 if I would, because when I was 20, I didn't go to the bar. I didn't want to, you know what I mean? All I wanted to do was play music and play good music.
Right.
I don't know that that would change, whether it was today or 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
You know, I'd still be that same person.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, back to Mr. Dylan, I just think that I just don't know if there'd be a place for him today. Not in the way that he's been proliferated
Right.
and been as iconic as he has. I'm not saying that he couldn't be, you know, that we wouldn't know him in some sort of substrate
Right.
of music.
Yeah.
That he'd exist in some pool.
Right.
Yeah, I don't even know if we can pull somebody out of the past and plop them here and say, would they be successful or not? I don't, yeah, because the times they are a-changing.
No, well, that's a great quote. And he would appreciate that. I certainly did. I thought it was very witty of you to say that. No, I agree. I guess what I'm saying, though, is if that environment existed, the way that it existed for Bob Dylan to be Bob Dylan, and to proliferate his music and his ideas and his thoughts and the thoughts that we all shared at that time, and become the person that he is, I don't know that anybody coming up today is going to have the chance to be heard the same way Bob Dylan was heard in 1965.
Yeah, can't say, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way. It seems like
People are distracted and want something more electronic and more dense and less interesting. Have you ever read the book The Trouble with Music?
No,
it's a great book.
is that?
The strangest thing about the book,
And it's a great read. I mean, the guy, he's a producer, and it was written, I think it was published in like 2001 or 2003 or something. British guy wrote it.
Right.
And he was an engineer and heavily involved in the music industry. The only strange thing about the book is that the foreword is written by the lead singer of Chumbawamba.
you know, I get knocked down and I get up again, you know, that,
Oh, yeah.
right?
And I'm thinking, well, isn't that part of the trouble with music? Wasn't Chumbawamba, guilty? And it's just very odd that's the guy that wrote the foreword. But it's a great book. And he starts to explain, because it wasn't happening just in 2001, even though it was happening, sort of the death of quality over quantity.
Right.
And actually it's very interesting because even though you hear music in more places today than you ever had, you hear it from less artists than you ever had. And I have an example of this, because Sarah and I, a couple years ago, were writing out set lists. We were thinking about doing either a ship or something like that, right? And so we were writing out music, from the 70s up to the current, which would have been 2015. And in the 70s, there were so many artists to choose from. I mean, it was endless, the name of artists. And you'd go, well, who wrote that? Well, Henry Gross, Henry Gross, wow, what else did he do? Nothing, but he had that, and that's a hit, and everybody knows it.
Right.
And who else? Well, there's Carpenters, 18 Carpenters tunes you can pick from.
Right.
The Bee Gees, an entire catalog of stuff you could pick from. And the list of artists was endless, really.
Right.
And then we get to 1980, and it was like
Less, and markedly less.
it was something that we both commented on. It was like, wow, there's not the amount of artists that there was in the 70s,
Interesting.
but there's still, a rather sizable number of artists. But we noticed this dichotomy, and then we got to the 90s, and we were like, holy shit, where did the artists go?
Wow.
There's like 16, and there were too many artists to count from the 70s.
Right.
And then we got to the 2000s, and there had to be 3.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Really?
And you
Wow.
could see it on paper.
How it's shrinking.
But now music is more readily available than it's ever been. And you hear music in more places than you ever would have heard in the 70s.
That's true.
Especially now that we're open on Sundays.
Yes. Huh.
You know, so I actually saw that physically on paper. You know, we'd look and we'd see, okay, there's all these 70s, and then 80s, it just kind of went like that.
That's
And
right.
then the 90s, it went like that, and the 2000s, it pretty much closed.
Very interesting.
Well, there's probably more people making music. I mean, if you go on YouTube, you can find 82 covers of, of a Beatles tune. Everybody's like sitting and recording themselves playing and singing it. And
They are. And that's just it. I mean, there's more music being had today.
Yeah.
But there's less exposure to the masses of people doing it.
it's interesting.
Well, I think part of it,
I wonder why that is.
Geddy Lee talked a little bit about this. He said, yeah, and I don't know what he was talking about because I don't think Rush ever did this, but he said, in the 70s, you could write 6 shitty albums.
And one hit.
Right, and the record label wouldn't drop you because they knew that 7th album, they'd probably make their money back.
Right.
Or the 8th or the 9th or
Right.
the 4th or whatever.
Right.
But you could make some bad albums because they invested in you. And now, nobody invests in anybody. And debuting at #1, an artist that has never been heard before can now debut at #1.
True.
Before their song has even been heard.
Yeah.
And you wonder, how does that happen? Well, we know exactly how that happens. They just bought the debut spot because you can't do it any other way. I don't know who you are.
Right.
How can I be excited about someone I don't know exists?
Yeah.
And so that's, it's the corporatism of music is what's shut down the fact that that beatnik doesn't exist.
Right.
That they just couldn't pull enough people in.
Right.
And I don't know if it's a fight, I don't know if it's a war on our hands. And I do believe in peace and love.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. At least I'll say that. But I also think that we're kind of getting screwed.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
We're okay to accept it. We're okay to say it. Yeah, c'est la vie, I would love to come out and listen to you because I had 16 opportunities to do it over 3 weeks.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't have that.
No.
I can't make one gig that you have a month.
Right.
But I might be able to make that 16th one that you had in 3 weeks.
Right.
And you don't have that.
No.
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 I mean, we used to have 6-nighters and,
Back sixes and all that.
yeah.
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 And isn't that, you met Dan in the 80s, right?
Late 80s,
In
yes.
late 80s.
Late 80s.
In a rock band.
Yes.
Yeah, of all things.
Yes, I auditioned for his rock band.
Wow. And you
Yeah.
obviously got the job.
Got the gig, got the guy.
32 years later, right?
32 years later.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the guitar that I bought off that guy, as a matter of fact, I took it to L&M because it needed to have I needed to put a pickup in it and everything, and the guy says, yeah, this guitar needs work, kind of thing, and then I was playing at the Forest Lawn Hotel Lounge.
Right, the Forest Lawn Hilton, they used to call it.
It's not there anymore, right?
No, it burned down, I think, or it kind of went, it went up in flames a little bit, and then they thought, that was a good start, let's finish that.
So I was playing there, and he came up to hear me, and he said, I know these guys, they're looking for a lead singer, and so he hooked me up, and I went and auditioned. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and then we went out on the road, and I had no idea what I was doing, not a clue. I learned as I went.
Was that your
Definitely.
first real experience in a proper sort of
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah, we had a
Big old yellow school bus, and we took the seats out of the back so we could put the gear in, and light man and sound man, and off we
Wow.
went. Yeah.
So you had a light guy and a sound guy,
Yeah.
and you were playing clubs.
Yeah.
That's- Bars,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
That's different.
yeah.
And we traveled in BC and Alberta and Saskatchewan.
And today they still do have, light guys and sound guys in bars. It's called the guitar player.
No, it was quite a production.
Right,
Yeah.
sounds like it.
And we'd get somewhere on a Sunday, pack up and, bring it all in, and we used to hump gear ourselves.
Right.
Even the chick singer humped gear. There
You
was
did?
there was no diva.
Nobody got a free ride.
Nobody, no. And so,
Yeah, they set up and we'd do a sound check, and Monday night, boom, we'd be singing in the smoky bars. Remember? Everybody could smoke
yeah.
in the bars.
Of course you could. Of course
Yeah. So, and we did that.
Airplanes, you can smoke in there.
Oh, yeah, remember that?
Do you want smoking or not smoking? Does it really matter?
So, that's where I met Dan. Yeah.
Did you guys kind of hit it off right away, or did it take time?
not right away.
But it was, didn't take long.
Right.
And it was taboo. You weren't allowed to date the singer. It was like,
Yeah, right.
because the band always splits up if somebody's dating the
It's
singer.
The whole Yoko,
John and Yoko thing, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
That paradigm that something
Yeah, so
happens.
that
But
was-
did that happen?
We snuck around for a while.
You did.
no, the band did not split up over that. No. At the end of the year, I got to a place where it was like, I can't do this anymore 6 nights a week. And we actually came off the road, and I took classical singing lessons then. So I was singing classical music.
Where'd you take those?
It was the Carla Bagley Vocal Academy, and she had a teacher, her name was Judy Petrie, and so I took lessons from her. Yes. I won a first place at the Kiwanis Music Festival.
You did?
I did, for an Italian art song. Anyway, yeah.
what year was this?
Oh golly, don't know. I couldn't tell you. It would have been 90, in the 90s, yeah. So I had that going on, and then we put an original band together, and we met Darren Kopis. Do you remember Darren?
No.
Drummer, fantastic drummer.
Oh.
And he was doing the jazz program at Mount Royal. And he'd be talking about it. We actually rented a industrial bay, and we'd get together and rehearse in the industrial bay. We had everything set up, and
Wow.
and we'd write songs. And the band was called No Can Do.
No can do.
Horrible name for a band, really.
I didn't want to be the first to say it. I'm glad you said that.
But we had a lot of
Fun, and we wrote, and it was it was good for us.
So
But
what do you-
Darren was talking about jazz, and Dan's like, well, maybe I'll go do that, because he wanted to learn
Yeah,
how to
the
play
jazz thing.
guitar, player,
How
better.
hard could it be?
Yeah, and he did Mount Royal for 2 years, and then he went to Capilano for 2 years.
Who, Dan?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, he's actually got a degree in jazz composition.
So he really applied himself.
Yes, he did. He did very much. Well, Dan. It's
I-
what he
I
does.
did.
Yeah.
And so full throttle when he gets into something. And then we got to do a 12-week residency at the Banff Center for the Arts, and that's where we wrote the music for the CD.
Yeah. What was the name of the CD?
It's called I Know a Thing.
I Know a Thing, that's right.
Yeah.
And you guys did know a thing.
Yeah.
So when was it then? If you did all these things, I suppose it was just line upon line, precept upon precept, that I would someday hear your name and go, oh my God, those people are big on the Calgary music scene.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know how that would have formulated itself?
I have no idea.
I think you saw us bigger than we were. I don't know.
Or somebody told me a story,
Grander
and I
or
believed
something.
it.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were
I
like,
don't
they're
know.
Huge. These people.
I went to a bunch of vocal jazz workshops in Chicago, and there's one great one in Port Townsend, and then I went and studied with Janet Lawson in New York for a month. I stayed at her place and had a lesson with her every day. It was pretty intense, but I learned a lot, and I'm still learning. Good God.
Well, yeah.
Still learning, Yeah.
I'm practicing 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, like in my room with the door closed.
Yeah.
Because I just, it dawned on me once, it was like, what I don't know could fill a library. And then I realized, but I have access to the library.
Yes.
And then when I opened up the library, I'm like, holy shit, this is a big library. But I thought, at least I got the material.
Yeah.
So if I want to work on it, I can. It's there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been writing I love to
Have you?
write. Yeah, been writing some new stuff.
Well, you wrote a lot of the lyrics to I Know a Thing, like to that record?
Dan and I wrote both. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we collaborated on that, definitely, yeah.
Because I don't think I have a copy of that
Probably,
anymore.
I'll have to get you another. I will get
Because
you
that kicks is, I mean, that's just quite a tune. I just love that tune. And whoever played drums on that, you could probably tell.
Owen Howard,
Owen Howard.
he grew up in Edmonton, he's in New York now. Very fine drummer.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He loves weird time signatures. I have a CD of his and everything's in kind of odd meters and stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
So he lives in New York
Yep.
now?
Yeah,
and
and
he's...
plays and, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
So he lives in New York
Yep.
now,
Yeah,
and he's...
plays and, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, that's how you do it. But you gotta be that good. I mean, that guy was astounding. I listened to the record and I'm like, well, I won't be doing that today.
Right.
I won't play that lick. But I think I could sit there and swing.
Cool, yeah.
No, it was just a great record.
You know, there's two CDs, The Blue and You, and I Know a Thing. And that one, the last CD I put out was in 2003. It's time for another one, I feel like.
I think so. What is
Yeah.
that? If my math?
15 years?
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
15 to 16 years.
A very wise person told me once, you know, CDs are like taking snapshots of your musical development kind of thing. And I was stunted for quite a while because I was out of the scene for quite a while.
I know you
came
were.
back into it, right?
I don't know, you know.
So
I want to ask you about that a little bit. And you can, you know.
I'm not sure I want to talk about
yeah,
that. But
you can defer.
I was like squirrel. I went and did something else. You know, I was still singing, but it wasn't jazz. And after the end of like 10 years, it was like, wow, why did I do that? You know.
Right.
But I mean, everything has a reason and purpose, and so.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I won't get into it either, but I know that for me, it's funny because, you know, for me spiritually, I feel like I've learned a lot of things inversely. So, you know, where you think that some sort of spirituality is going to serve you correctly and well. For me, from my own experience and from watching the experience of others, I've realized that it can actually take away. It can actually detract. It can actually rob instead of give.
Well, you know, at the end of that, the whole thing of like backing out of, you know, doing gigs and things, and it was like, at the end of it, I was like, why? I mean, why? You know, and it was like, well, I heard this voice in my head saying, well, I never told you to stop gigging. It's like, damn, that's right, you didn't.
Right.
It's that kind of thing, so yeah.
But you probably agree that it was maybe the perception of that thing that made you believe that thing was saying, maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And then you realized, no, that's just perception. That's just the way that something was framed to me. That's not necessarily what I think.
And then getting back to jazz was like coming home.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're home.
Me too. Me too.
Well, I really am, because, like, you know, when we had Soul Body, right?
Yeah.
You know, we were doing Soul Body, and then all of a sudden, one day, you were gone.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're home.
Me too. Me too.
Well, I really am, because, like, you know, when we had Soul Body, right?
Yeah.
You know, we were doing Soul Body, and then all of a sudden, one day, you were gone.
Yeah. Well, it was fun,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I get distracted very easily, it seems. Yeah.
What?
And I'm not sure what that's about. And you know, you can do the whole, you know, well, why am I sabotaging myself, and why am I doing this, and why am I doing that? And it's like, you know, it's just what happens, you know. And I'm often going with what's on my heart these days. And so for about 7 years, I looked after the grandkids, because that was on my heart to do.
Right.
And looking after grandkids, there's not always the energy left to go and do things. And so when I stopped doing that, that was a year and a half ago, then it was like, okay, here we go. Here we go, no excuses now. It's like...
Well, and I'm glad that I mean, hey, you know, we all have a journey, you know, and I'm just glad that you're back.
Me too.
You know, because I didn't hear your name out there. Not that I heard too many people's names out there, because there wasn't as much anyway. But I've noticed on Facebook, this platform, that you are generously, you know, taking advantage of. That oh my God, there's Viv doing a gig with Step. Oh my God, there's, you know, Viv doing another gig with Step. And hey, there's Viv over there doing another gig with Step. And I think that, I mean, I think it's tremendous. I also think the painting thing that you're doing, and I call it a painting thing, and maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't dilute it that way, because there was one, maybe 2 paintings ago that you posted, that to me, it was like, and we both know who he is, and hopefully more people than just the 2 of us know, but to me, it looked like a Jason Gogo.
Oh, I love Jason Gogo.
Yeah.
He was actually he inspired me to start.
He did.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it seems to me that the way that the both of you approach this discipline seems somewhat similar.
See, for me, painting is not disciplined at all. It's I have a canvas and I have paint, and I put paint on the canvas and I let it tell me what to do, as opposed to me trying to manipulate it and get it to do something. I let it do its thing. And at the end of the day, when I look at it and if I don't like it, I can always paint over it and start again, which is fantastic.
I guess.
So I
canvas is cheap.
don't put that pressure on myself when it comes to painting. And you know, I'll put on tunes, I'll put on some jazz, and just let it happen.
Well, whatever is happening seems to be working.
Well, thanks, because I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, and once again, you know, I mean, you're just right. And I suppose in terms of art, you know, beauty is in the eye of the beholder sometimes. Sometimes. But to me, I don't know, there was so much depth to that one. And I was going to ask you to bring one. Maybe that one in particular, and I forgot to ask you. But maybe I'll post it.
Is it the orange one?
I don't know. It was brown and orange.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I don't usually paint with those colors.
No,
So-
to me it was.
to me, it was Jason Gogo.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, that's a huge compliment, because, I mean,
Yeah, he's not so bad, that guy.
yeah. And I miss him dearly.
Where is he?
He passed away.
No.
Yes.
When? You're telling me this now?
Last year, yeah, he passed away. Or he passed.
He moved on, I should say. He didn't
Right.
pass away. He's moved on.
Well, I just saw him a year ago.
Yeah.
So, was it just not?
It was in the winter. It was in the
Right.
winter, yeah. I don't know the exact date.
Yeah.
And not so natural? Or
I have no idea.
he looked damn good when I saw him.
Don't know.
He was wearing you know, he always wore a mink or something, you know.
Jason was the best.
He was larger than life, that guy.
Shit.
Because that's another guy I wanted to, you know,
interview.
that's why I'm doing this show, God damn it. Because there's too many that this is happening to, and we're not paying attention. I mean, Jason, and I didn't know this, so I'm gonna
See,
just,
but
I found out on Facebook.
well, I'm gonna address this just really quick, because, you know, for anybody out there that doesn't know Jason Gogo, in terms of his visual art, you know, to me it was as inspiring as Banksy, you know, like there was some really great stuff. He brought us, I think, into a garage with just paintings everywhere, and he always promised me he'd give me one. And I mean, De Niro has one of his paintings. Kirk Hammett, right, has one of his paintings, and he was just astounding. I mean, what those canvases spoke to me, what his art spoke to me, there was so much depth in what he did. So, shit. And I don't want that to happen. I mean, it's going to happen to all of us, I get it. But that's too bad. Because That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a guy like Jason, I mean, what is this? You know, like I said, 16 people can't be wrong. But, you know, people need to know that name.
Yes, I agree.
And,
Yeah.
and then, you know, he ran for mayor.
Yes, I remember.
I asked him about it. When I saw him no more than a year ago. I swear to God, it was at Vintage Shop House.
Yeah.
Anyway, he looked great. He looked healthy, and I asked him about the mayor thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, who's that Spanish guitar player guy?
Oscar Lopez.
Oscar Lopez. He said Oscar it was a lark. Oscar put me up to it. And I'm like, I said, yeah, because I was walking through the dog park one day with a bunch of people, and we were talking about, you know, the mayoral race or whatever, and it had just finished or whatever. And they said, you know, there was this guy, Jason Gogo, on there. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you know, like, we didn't know that much about him, so we didn't vote for him. I'm like, Jason Gogo? I'm like, I know Jason Gogo. No, it was, you know, but that was the kind of guy he was, I guess we say now.
Yeah.
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 Huh. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, I'm glad, well, in this respect, and I don't want to super spiritualize anything, but I suppose maybe in this respect, what you're doing and what you learned from him and the inspiration that you took from him maybe is living through what you're doing now.
Well, we'll get together and paint sometime. How's that?
Sure, I mean, I don't.
I'm the worst drawer on the planet.
But it has nothing to do
I
with
know.
drawing.
I know.
You know, here's the thing about art, though, is that this is several years ago, like 10 years ago now. They had these elephants, Indian elephants, in India, that were painting. And they were selling their paintings for like 200 grand, 300 grand. Their paintings were going for, and all it was they would get them to step in paint and then step on a canvas. And people were like, oh my God, this is it. I'm like, no, I suppose they could shit on there too, you'd never know it. And then you buy it. So maybe I got a chance. That's what I'm saying. Maybe there's a chance. If elephants could do it, I'll be right there with you. I'll be all over that. And I won't poop on the canvas.
I'm inspired.
By the fact that you're doing these things.
Yeah, you know, I've got my fingers in a few different kind of things going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've been singing at the church for a while now, that whatever it's called. What
Yeah,
is it?
Unity.
Unity.
Yeah.
Right. Is it a church, really? Do you call it a church, or do you call it just a...
I think it's more of
Place to
a
get
like a
together.
spiritual community
Right.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know,
Well, that sort of thing resonates with me a little bit more than the traditional. Although I suppose maybe the real traditional is somewhat inspired and right. It was just, you know, I think some of it's kind of stupid and kind of crazy, and sometimes maybe not even about what it's supposed to be about.
Well-
About God and about, you know, humanity.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that was one thing when I went through sort of my transformation, which was an inverse transformation, that I stopped looking up and I started looking out. And I started seeing people instead of doing this all the time.
Right.
You know, because I can't see what the hell that is anyway. And even if I could, how could I define it? And why am I called upon to define it? I don't think I am. I don't think I have to. I think it's impossible. I think it would be the most arrogant thing on the planet, or on any other planet, to say that I know what that is and I know what it looks like and it has a beard and the Sistine Chapel is correct and he had a guy named Jesus and that's his son. And I don't know any of that. All I know is that when I was doing this, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't looking around me and I wasn't looking at
Remember we were talking about the magical nights in music? I think that's when I feel the most connected.
Really?
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. When I'm with my grandchildren and they'll give me a hug and it's just that special moment, and that's when I feel connected.
and that's what it is for you.
Yeah.
And that's probably good enough.
That
isn't it?
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something personal, something maybe no one else would connect to in the exact same way. But it doesn't matter if we do or we don't. In your way.
Yeah.
As long as you do.
Yeah.
And we can connect in our own way.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know,
I'm fortunate enough to have worked with you, especially at that time, with music to me that was so inspiring, like Kicks and that whole album, CD, you know, and the learning curve that I was presented with.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Well, I never thought that you were in a learning curve, because that first rehearsal you came to, I was like, yep, that's the guy.
right, well,
I appreciate you saying that, but that's probably because I emptied the diaper before I came in the room.
But not on the canvas.
Not on the canvas. No, I did that at home, and I like, you know, upset stomach. And then I got there, and I suppose, you know, it worked out. It
Was wonderful.
worked out well.
Yes.
I think too, because, you know, I don't know, it was just such a challenge to me that I thought I have to do my best. I have to try. I mean, this shit ain't easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. And I'm glad that you wrote that music.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, I'm still, when I listen to it, I'm like, you know what, yeah. I don't want to be vain or anything, but it's...
I think it's timeless.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that kind of music, especially that record, I know I talk about it a lot, but you people out there have to listen to this. It's a good doesn't cut it. It's a fabulous representation, I think, of vocal jazz and instrumental jazz music, and Canadian as well. And
Well, I was blessed to have some really great musicians on there.
Yeah, Hugh Fraser as well?
Hugh Fraser's
Right.
on there, Dave Restivo, Jim Viviane, yeah. I mean, Owen Howard, yeah. I was truly blessed.
Yeah.
did you pick them, or did you and Dan pick them? Was it kind of a collaboration?
Well,
of each other?
it was
Kind of, you know, how sometimes the synchronicity thing comes together. I was doing helping out with a workshop, vocal jazz workshop at the Banff Center for the Arts, and that was the faculty at that time. And Hugh Fraser was there doing the instrumental jazz workshop, and I thought, I have all these guys in one place, and the studio's right there. So I approached them and asked them, and they said yes, and we had a couple of rehearsals and went in, and 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Just knocked it out.
Yeah.
Well, if I could be so bold, I'd like another copy of that, if you have
Absolutely.
one laying around somewhere.
absolutely.
Because I want to put it on and just, you know, like throw on Kicks and just remember, you know, the first time I tried to play it, you know, or the first time that you gave me the CD and said, oh, it's not much, just listen to it, I'm sure you'll be fine. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. Look, you know, I wanted to sit with you, and I want to sit with so many people in this town that I think are deserving of recognition, of praise, of the things that we should be giving to each other that sometimes we're not necessarily doing. And that's the only, you know, I mean, I'm not making any money off this. It's just because I think, I appreciate, you know, the people that taught me something. And the people that I feel represent what I'm striving for, you know?
Yeah.
And whether they're there or not is somewhat immaterial. I know we're all trying.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain, like I said, I'm starting to listen to I call them the little voices in my head, not the bad ones, the good ones, but they're actually the little voices on my heart. The ones in my head aren't, you know, always helpful, but the
Those
ones
are
on
the
my heart,
overthinking ones, yeah.
Yeah, the ones on my heart, the whispers that come on the heart, I think they're the ones that when I do listen to it, I end up having a tremendous experience. And most of those whispers are about contribution. It's about doing things that, yeah, I'm not making any money on this, but it feels good to do it, and so that's why I'm doing it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell my landlord the next time she asks. Yeah, I know it doesn't make any money, but it feels good. I mean, you know, what's your problem? Maybe not. Maybe I won't say.
It's something done with a joyful heart. You know, you get payback. Somewhere along the way, things happen, and just have to believe, right?
At least I believe that this has to happen. And, You know, I don't know. I don't know what else to do, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
For myself, lately, it's staying in that lane of gratitude, no matter what is going on around me. It's like, yeah, there's always something to be grateful for, and if I can stay in that place, then yeah, I'm doing okay.
And you're right, you can't let things pull you around too much. You know, and yet, once again, we all have a story, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We all come from something. We all come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's what we tell ourselves about those stories, right? They're just stories.
right. They, you know, at the end of the day, they are. I suppose the difference between them just being stories is the fact that they actually happened close enough to us to have some sort of impact.
Yeah.
You know, to stamp something good, bad, or indifferent on our, maybe not our heart,
Right.
but somewhere
Mm.
in us. And I guess that, you know, it's a stamp that doesn't wash off easy, you know? And maybe in some cases, when it's a good thing, you don't want to.
Yeah, you know, things that happen, you know, growing up. Like I could have made a story up around, well, there were no musical instruments in my household growing up. I used to love to sing, and my mother didn't send me for voice lessons. Boo-hoo, wah-wah, you know. I could tell myself that, and I think in the past I have.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, oh, you know, we had music around all the time. It was just looked different. Didn't look a certain way,
Right.
you know?
Right. And you still did get an education. I mean, you sought
Of some
out.
sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sought that out with the records, you know, with the Sinatras and the Doris Days.
What great teachers I had.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I could tell myself a different story about it all, though. Circumstance had happened, but I can tell myself that was a great way to grow up. Or I can say, damn, I didn't have formal voice lessons, or, I mean, I took some later on in life, but.
Isn't that maturity, though? Don't you think, to a certain extent, that it's
Probably.
it's you know, like somebody wise.
Or just having enough wine to.
Maybe that's it. You know. Why should I worry about anything? I have 2 more bottles of wine. I don't know. 'Cause I don't drink, and people say I should, and maybe I should. Ayahuasca. That's my thing. That's my next thing. I mean, because I don't do drugs, and I haven't done drugs in 25 years. But ayahuasca sounds so intriguing to me that at some point.
You think?
Yeah,
Oh,
it really does.
interesting.
Yeah, the whole sort of psilocybin, you know, experience. Not to get hooked, not to, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm.
Can you videotape it when you do it?
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's going up on YouTube.
You can have a private showing.
Yeah, unless, you know, because unless I get to a dentist first, because I'll probably be doing a lot of smiling, I would suppose. I don't know, you know, I just, you know, you hear people that have done that. You know, you hear Joe Rogan talk about it a lot, actually, and about just what that opens up to, that whole, what do they call that, the God molecule? What is it? I can't remember the name, but, you know, they call it the God molecule, and it's what is existent in ayahuasca. And I don't know. I mean, I'd just like to see what the hell they're talking about. The experience of just being open to the universe and taking that trip that shows you that place that you can't get to any other way, you know, through any other means. Mind you, we're musicians, and you, but I think it's a different thing that they're talking about. They're not talking about, you know, that experience itself is pure and natural,
Right,
right?
right.
And one that comes on just purely out of...
So would it be equivalent to like the olden days,
You know, back
the
in
golden days,
no.
back in the olden days,
You mean
like
almost-
LSD and all the psychedelic
No.
drugs?
Well,
It's a psychedelic, but it's not manufactured. It's natural. It's actually, you probably haven't heard much about it then.
No.
It's a Brazilian plant.
Oh.
And they've been
wow,
doing
yeah.
and they've been doing it in Brazil for forever. It's, you know, these shamans. And I wish, you know, once again, I don't know if it's the age or whatever, but I can't.
So
think
is
of
it
the names.
legal?
It's legal in Brazil.
Okay.
you know, and it's not like I'll be flying there anytime soon. But I suppose I would have to say no. It's not, because psychedelics aren't legal. Mind you, Colorado just passed a law where, like in the last week, I think.
Mushrooms, right?
Yeah, mushrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just strictly to mushrooms. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's no longer,
Illegal to possess them, I guess.
I guess, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So,
Interesting.
yeah, but this is as natural as mushrooms, and but it's something different. It's something that people are explaining as something different. And I'm not saying I'm running out tomorrow to do it. I'm just saying that
It interests you.
it interests me that, like, what would that do for me?
Right.
Because we all struggle with something, and I'm certainly not immune. You know,
Yeah.
with that part of us that would like to be enlightened, and
Right.
maybe doesn't get it. And I'm not saying drugs are the way to, you know, I'm not,
No,
you know, kids, please.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, we've said, you know, say no to drugs, you know, go back to Reagan and Nancy in the 80s, right? And that whole thing. And, you know, we've got guys rotting in jail for the last 40 years that sold a joint. Not so much in Canada, but in the States, absolutely.
Yeah, they're looking at changing like that, like those sentences being revoked and,
oh, they should.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I think they're looking at that now.
Especially now that dope is legal, or pot is in California anyway, and numerous other states, I think. I think it's only fair. I mean, how can you do that to somebody just because they wanted to experience something, you know, that isn't going to harm them, like a bottle of wine is. You know, you smoke a joint, you're not necessarily going to drive off the road, but if you have a bottle of wine, there's a good chance you might do some damage
Well,
to somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be driving with any of those options,
Right, sure.
you know.
But the effect, I mean, we know, you know, of alcohol is just different than,
It is.
you know.
Well, it depends how strong the pot is,
It does, however.
in my remembrance of it.
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah, I haven't smoked a joint in 25
Exactly,
years, so what the
yeah.
hell am I talking about?
Yeah.
But I know that they did a study, and they put, and I think it was maybe, I don't know, Rogan or somebody that was talking about this study, and they put two groups of people in two different rooms. And in the one room, they gave them booze, you know, just told them to, you know, get shit-faced, go ahead.
Right.
And in the other one, they just gave them pot, right? And said, you know, smoke as much as you want, and whatever. So, and they left them in the room, you know, until they were, you know,
Right.
satiated.
Right.
And respectively, and so they came back to the rooms to study what was going on. And in the one with the pot, you know, people were hanging out, you know, talking, laughing, you know, trying to solve all those problems, you know, and everything was cool, you know. You know, they had the munchies. That was the worst it got.
Giggles.
Huh?
The giggles.
The giggles, right, you know, they were just,
And they were talking. They were exploring, you know, different avenues of interest, you know,
Right.
and the cosmos, and trying to make sense of the world and everything else. They opened the door in the one where they were selling, or not selling, they were drinking, you know, like shit-faced in, and there was puke everywhere, guys were fighting. It was not the same experience that they were having over in this other room.
Right.
So, you know, once again, and I'm not saying that, you know, that drugs are great or they're not great. I just can't see putting somebody into jail for that amount of time for something so little.
Right. Yeah.
And yet we let it happen for 40 years and didn't think much of it. But that guy in jail thought
Well,
about it.
you know,
Everything's evolving, right? The way we think about things, the way the world's perceived. I mean, it's all evolving. So, yeah,
You think we're getting better?
I do.
I really do. I have to. Like, what's the alternative, right? It's like what you focus on is what you get. So,
And I agree. And I can take a page out of that. Actually, I can, you know, should read the whole book, not just take a page out of it. But at the same time, we're starting to realize that everything that we're thinking, or everything that's going on with us, is not necessarily constructed solely by us alone. I mean, certainly our attitude towards it is, right? I'll agree with that.
Right.
But there are some things that are outside of our control,
Right.
that have been happening for a long time, that we're starting to realize now we don't have anything to do with. And they're starting, you know, we're starting to see the effect that's had on us. So at the same time that we want to take responsibility for our own actions, some of the things that are happening, we realize are not necessarily being enacted by us,
Right.
right? But there are other forces or other entities or bigger things at work that are that are causing us to live the way we do, or eat the way we do, or,
Right.
consume the way we do. Right? Not that we don't have a choice in all that, but when you start to limit choice to only those things, then...
I heard an interesting story once, kind of a little story about two souls that want to come to planet Earth, to experience planet Earth. And one soul says, I want to experience forgiveness. And the other soul says, okay, I'll come with you and I'll create an opportunity for you to experience that. So when I heard that story, I was like, wow, it can go so deep, It's like, is that what actually happens? I don't know if that's what happens. Do we decide to come here and create experiences together? Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That whole spiritual element for me, has been lost over the last 10 years.
Right.
And for reasons. And I suppose the one thing that I've found solace in, it's funny because when I called myself quote unquote a Christian, at the same time that I was doing that, it felt like hurdling and jumping through hoops. And I didn't like God. I hated him because I felt like everything I lacked was his responsibility. And I wasn't getting what I wanted. And when I finally stopped looking at it all that way, I took him off the hook. And I don't know if he gave a shit or not. I'm sure he's, quite self-sufficient and okay with who he is. But when I took him off the hook, it did something for me. I was no longer as angry as I was. I was no longer as bitter as I was. I still shake my head at some of my plight, but it certainly took that pressure off to, of this entity thinking that it needed to do and it needed to produce. And it put it on me, which I was more okay with, to say, no, I need to produce, I need to do, I need to, make my way.
Right.
I think it has a lot to do with just allowing, because everything's all there. It's all here. It's just allowing that whatever it is that I say I would like to happen, be able to flow. Which is going to be the name of the next recording, actually. Nice
Flow?
segue, eh? Yes.
Flow?
Flow.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear that. Have you been writing for it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Is Dan in this?
No, but however,
I found a recording that we had done many years ago now with Robin Tufts. We went into the studio one night and said, okay, let's record a couple of tunes. And we ended up recording 4 songs. And I remember going home the next day and listening to it and thinking, oh my God, I sound like shit. What am I thinking? Oh Lord, oh, what, and it, all that, what was that? And so we never did anything with it. And we were going to go in again and record another 4 tunes and have a small CD, kind of thing, and nothing ever happened. And so probably about 4 months ago, I was looking through boxes and stuff, and I came across CDs, and I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of remember this. So I was going out in the car doing errands and stuff, so I thought I brought it with me and put it in the car, and I'm listening to it going, wow, that's, that's,
Better than you thought it was.
It was.
And so I got together with Robin and we had to listen to it, and he's like, well, why do you want to release this now, kind of thing? And I said, because of what Hugh Fraser said, it's a snapshot of where I was musically. And it's Dan and Robin and myself, and we did 4 tunes, and one's original, and we kind of made it up that night.
Okay.
And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to release it as an EP, extended play, because there's not enough for a CD. There's no point trying to go and recreate more of that.
Sure.
Right? So it's going to be an EP, and it'll be the first in a trilogy. So we're going to do part 1, and then there'll be a part 2, which is what I'm writing for now. And so I'll get that recorded, and then there'll be a part 3.
Ah,
Yeah,
wow.
so.
And this is you conceptualized this?
I did. I go for walks and I get,
Amazing ideas.
Right.
I get songs, like I bring my phone with me now because then I can record into it, like sing into it. So I can remember them. And yeah,
So you get melodic ideas, lyrical ideas, all these things. are coming
rhythmic.
I love rhythm. So
I know you do.
yeah.
Well, you play some bongos, I know that.
I do.
Congas.
Congas, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's going to be the next one. Is going to be yeah.
It's going to be this extended play.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any idea when? I mean, if people want to check it out.
I'm still kind of formulating things. Like it's not a full picture yet, and maybe the idea is that I don't wait till it's a full picture. Sometimes I like all the things to be kind of like put together before. But yeah, it might be like that was just spontaneous. Let's go record some tunes. Okay, let's go, kind of thing, But I do have some songs that I've written that I want to record, and yeah.
For some reason, I feel like we're not done. And I'm just going to say that.
Okay.
But I think for now, so people can go wash the dishes or something. We'll
Or
Stop
go
it.
smoke a joint.
or go smoke a joint or do some ayahuasca. I don't know. I don't know what everybody's doing. I know I'm going to go get something to eat. But I don't want to leave it until I've just reiterated that I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Thank you. And I appreciate, just what you've given this town, this community, the music that has inspired me, the notion of 2 people, you and Dan, that inspired me. And whether it's true or not, you made me work harder, because, it was almost like you got to be this tall to ride, and you got to be this good to play. And so I appreciate you for those things, and I appreciate you for being the kind of person you are. You really seem you just seem peaceful these days.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot getting in the way.
Well, you get older, and there's
Who
a
gives
lot
a
of
shit, right?
stuff that doesn't matter anymore, right?
Yeah.
You stop dyeing the hair and just like
Right,
whatever.
that's
It's like, yeah. And I think, the more I can accept myself, the more I'm accepting of other people.
Yeah, because we all, the potential that you have for both good and evil. And I think that that's something that I realize too, that I also have the propensity for tremendous greatness and abhorrent evil. So how can I judge?
I guess I'm really looking to come from the spot of I want to see the gold. I want to see your gold. I want to see the gold in you, so that I'm not focused on the other stuff.
Right.
I want to, because that's who you really are. The other stuff is not who you really are.
The wheat.
Separate the wheat from the chaff,
Yeah.
like the dross. Right, the
Just,
dross
what do you
is-
focus on, right?
Yeah,
Focus on what's joyful and good.
sure. And the dross is what gets burned off in the refining process. And
Yeah.
you're just left with, why not?
And I'm not always there. That's for sure. I am not, especially when it comes to me. But if I can learn to do that for myself, then it's really easy to do it with everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just seem like a breath of fresh air these days. Like
Well, thanks.
there's just something that's not there anymore, and so it's just an honest representation of you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate that.
I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Whether it means a lot to me, and it does, or even to Viv, it means a lot to the community. I can tell you that there's more at stake here than just 2 people. It's, the survival of music and the remembrance of people that have, that surround us, that have come before us. And that recognition, I think, can go a long way in terms of underpinning a healthy music market or atmosphere in this place we desire to live in. So anyway, thank you very much, and I will see you next week for someone new. Until then, take care.